What in the world is going to happen to the profit from our home after our divorce when a house is sold? This is a great question, and I always love when we get to the point of asking this because what it means is there's a plan and we're moving forward. So many times in divorce, things get stale and stagnant, but once we have a plan for a home and we're asking questions like, where's the money go? What's going to happen to it? My heart gets happy because it means we're getting closer to the end and to people being able to move on to the next best phase of their life, which is what things look like after a new chapter. So, by the way, my name's Rebecca Green. I'm a divorce real estate specialist here to share all of the FAQ questions that you may have about what's going to happen during your divorce. Today's question is, what happens to the money, the proceeds from our home when we're getting divorced? And the answer is, God only knows. We're going to have to get a plan for them. First, I want to explain what happens in a normal home sales situation because I think that will help you balance. In a normal home sales situation, the profit from a house, that is after any contractors are paid, your mortgage is paid off, the title company is paid, the real estate agents are paid, there'll be a pile of money, hopefully. And you tell the title company, hey, this should be deposited in our bank account, or this should be given to our family as a check, or this will be used for the down payment on another house. All of those are still options in a divorce situation, but we start to get very, very careful with who says the money goes where. If you have not filed for a divorce yet and you're selling the family property, then the title company, unless you tell them, has no way to know that you're divorcing. They're going to treat this sale like a normal sale if there are no county tax records or you don't disclose to them that you're divorcing, which means you could send the money to a family bank account. You could send the money to 2 bank accounts. You could send the money to 3 bank accounts. You could have an attorney or a title company hold the money. It could be held as a check. There's a million things that you can do, but if you don't disclose to the title company that there's a divorce going on and both spouses need to be involved in figuring out where this money goes, then the title company is just going to treat it like a normal sale, and you're going to probably write the bank account and routing number of where you want that money sent on the day of closing to the title company. They'll send the money there. You typically get it the next business day and you're good to go. Now, if you're divorcing and your divorce has already been filed or you choose to disclose to the title company that you're going through a divorce, they're going to be more careful about what you do with the money. At the end of the day, the title company has to follow the rules. There are very specific rules, just like in banking, about who they can send the money to, who has to sign off, and that all has to do with who's on the title of the house. So in the states where I practice real estate, Missouri and Kansas, there's a rule that we like to say 1 to buy, 2 to sell, which means that a married person can buy a house without their spouse knowing because it's just based off of their income as a person being able to pay a bank back. And when you sell, and you take title of a house. Let me back up. When I own a home, it would say, even if my spouse wasn't on it, it would say Rebecca Green, a married person, owns this home. Because when I go to sell the home, the title company is going to see that on the deed and they're going to say, oh, Rebecca's a married person. We better check to make sure that her husband knows that she's selling this house because he would be entitled to part of this property as a marital asset. That's what happens whenever you sell a property. A title company comes in, they look, and they're like, this person was married. We need to make sure that both people whose asset this is know that the home is being sold and they're both in agreement of where the funds would go. If you're going through a divorce, there's a few things that can happen to those proceeds. If you agree, same thing can happen. Everybody can sign off. I get half the money, he gets half the money, and we all move on. If you are not settled and you don't know who's going to get the proceeds for the specific house, then the title company would either need to hold the money themselves, give it to your attorneys to hold, or find a neutral third party where you both agree the money gets sent to. Again, they will not give you these funds until everyone has signed off and agreed. There are several places where this can get very, very messy. And those places would be, gosh, there's horror story after horror story. I'll tell you one right now, though. I was talking to a title company friend a couple of days ago. They had a situation where the couple owned a property in a county other than where they were getting divorced. And in the part of the country where I live, divorces are filed at the county level. So you hire your attorney. In my situation, Jackson County, you're like, hey, Jackson County, we're selling our properties and we're divorcing. Great, that goes on record. And if you look me up on CaseNet, you would find my last name with my divorce decree in my county. Now, if I own a property outside of my current county, there is a possibility that those county levels filing systems don't talk to each other. So if I go to sell my house in this other county and my divorce isn't filed in that county, the title company has no way to know what my divorce decree said. And in the scenario that she was telling me, the husband in the situation was really mad at his ex-wife still. And when they sold the property in a different county other than the one that their divorce was filed in, he kept all the proceeds. Should he have done that? No. Will he probably have to pay it back? Yes, because it said in the divorce decree that they were going to split the proceeds, but there were some funky things on the title, and the title company could not stop him from keeping that money because he was now a single person and the divorce had been finalized. So there are so many ways that people can get in over their head with an answer to this question about where the proceeds go after closing. You need to get very, very specific with everybody involved: attorneys, title companies, real estate agents, and spouses who are divorcing, about what happens to the money. Another thing that can be really scary for a lot of people is typically divorces are expensive. And if a couple's deciding to sell a home to use the money of the asset of the family home to start their new lives over, whether it's a down payment or first month's rent at a new apartment, something like that, a lot of times people want that money quickly because that is what they're relying on to not have to get a second job or have to go into credit card debt to pay for an attorney. So what's important whenever you're selling a house as early on as you can is to establish with your spouse. Something that I like to suggest is, let's say a couple's selling a home and there's $100,000 equity. Maybe they don't know exactly who is going to get all of that money or how it's going to be divided up, but they could agree early on, hey, we're each going to take $10,000 from these proceeds and the other 80 is going to be held by our attorney or a title company until we figure out what that looks like. Now, what'll happen in a divorce, they don't just divide every asset 50-50 down the line. What they'll say is they'll put all the assets together. So if one spouse has a big retirement, one spouse maybe keeps the equity from the house, or there's different ways to balance it. It all just has to be agreed to. Until when we go back around to asking the question is what happens with the proceeds, you and your attorneys and your real estate professional are going to decide what's going to happen to those assets. Now, one thing that's really important to note, once the assets are sent out from the title company and they have their instructions, they're gone. And what happens a lot of times is people will agree on the house early on and they're like, hey, we've got to sell it. Well, I'll take this money to move on. And then you've got to find other ways to balance out assets like a retirement or I don't know, the number of secret bank accounts that people have has been mind blowing to me in this industry. But at this point, it is what it is. People have secret debts, people have secret bank accounts, and making sure that all of those financial things come up to the surface at the beginning of a divorce, as awkward and as weird as it might be in the beginning, will save everybody a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of money. You guys, attorneys are not cheap. They're going to charge you every hour on the hour for every 15-minute phone call for the emails. It's their business. They went to school and got really big, expensive degrees, and it's how they run their business. So the more that you can figure out on the back end with other professionals other than an attorney who would tell you, hey, I don't know real estate. That's not my thing. I'm just going to help you dissolve this business that you went into, which is being married to another person. So those are my thoughts on what happens with the money. It can be deposited to your bank account. It can be picked up in a check. It can be held till your divorce is over. But one of the things that a divorce decree will say is what happens to a family home. And so you are going to have to negotiate and figure this out with your person that you're divorcing pretty early on in the process. If this is something that you have questions about or you want to bounce ideas off me from a financial standpoint, again, I'm easy to find. You have my contact information, and I would truly be happy to help.